Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Money and Mindset Podcast. I am your solo host today, Sharika Alford. Anntricia will not be joining us, but she will be back, so don't fear. Fortunately, I have a guest today, Marc Russell, the creator of Better Wallet, and we're going to have just a nice chat about overcoming the battle of the budget, which, a lot of people, once you hear the term budget or spending plan, you kind of shut your ears off. But we're going to talk about that. But before we do so, remember that the views expressed by our guest and the host on the Money and Mindset podcast are for entertainment and informational purposes only and does not constitute any financial, legal, or other type of advice. So, Marc Russell, the creator of Better Wallet, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So first and foremost, thank you for having me on the podcast. A year back, I would never think I would ever, join podcasts to tell my story. Really, I created an Instagram page, Better Wallet, to help teach financial literacy across the country, and it's starting to, kind of seep across the globe. I've had people reaching out from different countries asking for financial guidance, which is great because people are now focused in more than ever on their finances. So thank you for just bringing me on the show. But Better Wallet is just that, teaching financial literacy to the masses. And what I learned throughout my life was that I grew up from very humble beginnings, low income household. We were talking a little bit earlier about being in a smaller town. No one knows anything about personal finances. I didn't know what a 401k was until I started working for Vanguard. Mutual funds, ETFs, budgets, like all that, like that wasn't a topic of conversation at all growing up. So to understand that, learn about budgeting, learn about investing, become a financial advisor, become a stockbroker, I learned that I can have conversations on both sides of the spectrum, right? So from budgeting and just the basics all the way up to private equity funds and hedge funds and things like that are incredibly boring and no one really ever cares about them. But in my head, I was like, how can I give this back to the world? And I was like, okay, I can go and do presentations all across the country. And then COVID hit. So I was like, okay, well, there has to be another way of expanding my reach. And Instagram was a great platform, still is a great platform. So I'm primarily using Instagram to spread the message for everyone to really get their finances together.
Now, you hit rewind. Now, you said you were raised and you didn't know about any of the budgeting or investing or anything. So, how did you end up in finance?
Yeah, I kind of weaseled my way in. So from Penn State, I put myself through school. So I had to learn a lot about, getting scholarships, grants, interest rates. Like, what does it mean for an unsubsidized loan versus subsidized? Like, what's the difference? All that stuff, right? So I go from doing that to I was a leader on campus as well. And I knew a little bit about finance because I started school in 2008 and I was really fascinated by what happened in Wall Street that led to the financial crisis. So I kind of nerded out over all that. But self-funding school and adding all that together, right? I was looking for jobs where I could use that. And luckily a company came by the name of Vanguard, which I didn't know who the heck they were before. They were just like, hey, like you seem like you're a great fit for this company. I'm like, what, Vanguard who? And they're like, yeah, no, Vanguard, like we have like securities and mutual funds, ETFs. I'm like, whoa. I'm a kid from the hood. Like, I don't know what any of that stuff is. I was like, so are you guys like ADT? Like, do you sell like security? And they're like, no, not that kind of securities, like investments. And I'm like, my mom would never believe it if I ever tell her I work for an investment firm, right? So it was over my head. Interview process went really well. And luckily I was able to get into Vanguard in one of their prestigious programs. It was a leadership development program. But the short of it is that I was thrown into the wolves and I had to learn everything within the course of 15 months. and then also be able to present on a lot of that material. So, at the age of 22, 23, you're giving presentations on mutual funds, ETFs, and all that in front of, managing directors of Vanguard, right? So like the pressure was on. But I'm very grateful for my experience, but that's how I went from not knowing anything about finance all the way to understanding a good bit about it. And, luckily, having the credentials to kind of speak to it.
That's awesome. Now, on a personal level, once you start learning about finance and about mutual funds and ETFs and all the things, I can just imagine you were probably excited and you wanted to go share what you were learning with your family members and friends. How did they receive that information?
Yeah, so I was really excited to talk about all of that. And it really went over their head a little bit, and I think I had to level set a little bit more. And I think that's the time where I had to tell myself, okay, well, they're not at that point. What are the steps to understand what a mutual fund, ETF, trust funds, whatever it might be, what are the steps to get there? And I realized that it starts off first with budgeting, paying off debt, having an emergency fund, those core foundational parts of, having your finances together. My family had to start there. And then from there, we would have conversations about 401ks and getting a match and IRAs and spousal IRAs and how you can use the tax code to your advantage because the rich people are doing it. Why not you? Right. So so it was incremental over time, and it's an ongoing conversation. Like I'm 10 years into my career, and we're getting to the point where we're talking about life insurance and like the importance of that and the importance of life insurance and a complete financial plan. So it's an ongoing conversation, but I've learned I had to break it down for my family to understand it a little bit more because they weren't there yet, and I wouldn't expect for them to be there. And that's the most of the people across the world are not at the point where they can have fluid conversations about ETFs and mutual funds and stocks.
Right. Now, you going back to those core financial bricks, those building blocks, you said budgeting and paying off debt.
Yeah.
Now, I know in speaking with some people, once I start rambling about budgeting or a spending plan, if you will, it's like I can just see the.
You're like, oh God, here we go.
So, how do you present that? Because I don't know of any other way to, I mean, until you get that budgeting part under control to free up the money that's seeping through, to pay off the debt and to invest. I mean, how do you get people to, I guess, grasp hold to that concept and embrace it?
Yeah. So I have a little bit of a sales background, right? And sales 101 is sometimes you have to lead the audience or the prospect to their own result. So lead your prospect to their own result through questioning. So I think sometimes as humans, and if you're A type like me, where I'm just like, this is what you need to do, right? It can come off wrong if they're not accepting of that. And most people would be kind of turned off to, hey, like you need a budget. Because they're like, why do I need a budget, right? So instead, I take kind of like the inverse of that, and I'll ask them questions and say, okay, well, what are your financial goals? I want $3,000 to go to Cabo. Great. How do you plan on getting there? I don't know. I hope to have $3,000 by the end of the year.
Cool. That wish money.
Right. Like a goal without a plan is just a wish at the end of the day. So then I would, ask questions like, what have you done to try to save how much you need to save to go to Cabo at the end of the year, have $3,000? Nothing. I try to put money aside, then I need it. Then, I go out to eat. Then, I go here, do that. And then I will say, hey, like, do you give your money an assignment? Is your money employed? Is the way I phrase it. Do they all have a job? Do your dollars have a job? And they're like, what do you mean by that, Mark? Here you go again, right? And I would say, when you get paid, what do you do with your money? They're like, oh, I allocate money to bills and then I spend the rest. And I would tell them, well, what if you allocated money to bills, but the rest of the money that's not going to your variable expenses, you actually allocate it to going to Cabo? You're like, oh, okay. And like you see the wheels turning. And then from there, I'll say, a good way of detailing this is to have a financial plan or to have, a budget. And it doesn't have to be these crazy budgets out there. You have Mint and you need a budget and every dollar. Those brands are great. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, it doesn't need to be anything but a simple Excel sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, it could be a piece of paper. You write down,
Right.
All of your expenses. But the challenge with budgeting is not doing it the right way. And sometimes people budget themselves into a corner, and then when the weekend comes up, they want to have fun, they want to have a party, whatever it might be, and they'll say, I don't have enough money to do that. Right. So in your budget, you want to make sure that you have fund allocated, right? Like I made a post the other day, like make sure you have fund money as a category within your budget. So that way you don't feel constrained. So have fund money, have investing, have Cabo on there, have that planned out. So at the end of the year, you can say, well, I have the money for Cabo. I also have an emergency fund. I paid all my bills. I have money being invested. I feel good. And that way, that's the way you kind of work around like, hey, you need a budget. You kind of lead them to their own conclusions. And if you're able to lead them to their own conclusions, then likely they'll continue month after month, budgeting their dollars. So that's how I go about doing it. I have 5 sisters, 3 of them like are just like, yeah, like I get it, but I'm not going to do it. And then the other 2,
right,
like I appreciate it. I'm going to try. And that's all I ask. Just try to be open-minded, and over time they'll get what I'm saying, and implement it in the way that they think is implement it in a way that works best for them and their family.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I guess it's probably a lot like dieting. It's like, I'm going to go on a diet. I'm not going to eat any more carbs or any more sweets or any more of that. And that's fine for maybe a day or 2. And then you just go crazy,
Exactly. And then, same questions, right? It's, what's your goal? I want to lose 25 pounds. How you plan on getting there? I don't know. Like, have you considered this? Like, you don't have to be on a diet plan, but you should have some sort of like understanding on what you can and cannot eat. And if you choose to eat ice cream every day, that's fine. You just have to balance it out with something else.
Oh God.
Yeah. a lot of running and maybe doing intermittent fasting or something of that nature. Not that I'm that guy, but
no.
no, that's totally me, right? Like I want to look and feel healthy, but I really like ice cream, right? So I work out every single day and I eat ice cream maybe once every 2 weeks, and I'm cool with that. And my doctor and nutritionist to give me a thumbs up every time when I see him. So that yeah, that works for me.
So if there are, say, people in our listening audience who would like a little bit more, I guess, assistance with setting up their budget, do you have resources available that can help them with that? And if so, how can we get access to those resources?
Yeah. So I'm really into budgeting on Excel. Again, like I don't really like all the apps that are out there. I feel like it's oversaturated and they overcomplicate a simple concept.
Okay.
So I have a budget template on the Better Wallet Instagram page. Here in a couple of weeks, it'll be on thebetterwallet.com. But the budget template is really simple. It has an area where you can add in your income, let it be reoccurring or a bonus that might come in or dividends, whatever. It has an area where you can add your fixed expenses, so like your bills. And then the area that most people forget about is variable expenses. I have an area for that. And then it's auto sums, or it's auto calculated. So all you have to do is plug in the numbers, and at the end, it will tell you what your deficit or surplus might be. If it's a deficit, that means that you're spending more money than what you're bringing in, and then the vice versa of that is that you have some money that you can allocate to whatever you want to allocate it to, paying off debt or investing or whatever you might have as a financial goal.
It's awesome. And your Instagram handle is
Better Wallet.
Better Wallet. Okay.
Yep.
And I will absolutely put that in the show notes. If you're just now joining the Money and Mindset podcast, I'm speaking with Marc Russell, the creator of Better Wallet. Now, Marc, just in case the audience may not be familiar with you and they're like, this guy's talking all this stuff, but what's his real life experience? Well, you paid off.
Crazy.
you paid off $80,000 worth of debt.
Yeah.
In 3 years, was it?
3 years. Yeah. 3 years. 3 fun years.
So how did you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said it was easy. I'd be lying if I told you it getting my mindset together took me more than 3 years, right? So 2017 is when I really committed to my journey and said, I have $80,000 left. How can I get rid of all of this debt? And I just knew that if I didn't change at that point, I was going to be living perhaps paycheck to paycheck for the rest of my life or the rest of my career. I didn't want that. I kind of had a vendetta against not only the expenses that I had, but also my debt. And I felt that I worked so hard throughout, my childhood and throughout college that I didn't deserve to have to pay debt forever. So it started off with the foundation. It started off with the mentality of saying, hey, like, I'm going to do this. I will be debt free by 2020. I will commit to the journey. I will tell my friends that, hey, like, I'm not going to go. I keep bringing up Cabo. Maybe I need to go to Cabo. I can't go to Cabo next year. I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm sorry. Like, I'm trying to become debt free. And you have some friends that say, like, I get it. And, hopefully, we can hang out some other time. And you have others that will be like, no, like, we need to go out. Like, you have to have a little bit of fun. So just getting your mental together and getting your community together, that was critical. So that's number one. Number two comes down to budgeting and trying to budget out the right way. So cutting expenses, having very serious conversations with, my apartment complex, with Geico, for example, who I get, who has my insurance for my car, and just saying, hey, like, I'm getting charged 120 right now. What do you think about charging 80? If not, I'm going to go somewhere else, right? My cell phone bill, like, I went from, AT&T, and now I have, who I have now? Straight Talk. And it's maybe half the price. And to mention, it's probably the same amount of service as well. So not buying clothes that I didn't really need, and really having a conversation with myself and saying, am I spending my money on needs or am I spending money on wants? And a lot of the money that was leaving my wallet from looking at, statements, my bank statements, they were all wants. I want this. I want to go out to a restaurant. I want, drinks. I love gin and tonics. I love, having that, Friday evening drink. I love ice cream. I love Indian food. And just saying, okay, what am I comfortable giving up in order to achieve my financial goals? So over time, you start paying off your debt. And then once you pay off your credit card debt, then you have another couple $100 left over. You apply to your student loans. And it's very much like an avalanche, if you will. Over time, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then by the time you pay off your debt, like, I didn't even know what to do with myself. I'm like, I have this remaining amount of money. What do I do? And then I started my wealth journey of just investing all of it, investing into my business and into my community.
Wow, that is amazing. Well, do you have anything else that you would like to share with our audience, especially that person that's kind of straddling and, they're kind of on I guess, on path to their financial journey, financial freedom, but just not quite there yet, do you have one last word of advice for that individual?
I would say commit to the journey, like build out your next, 1, 3, 5, 10 year plan and then work backwards. Because if you tell yourself, I want to be completely debt free by 40, and if you work backwards and you start working on that goal today, that goal will become much easier over time. But I think we as humans, we procrastinate and say, hey, like we want to do this, but we don't want to make those small changes to our lifestyle. We don't want to make or do those boring habits of, telling people no or not doing this, not doing that. Um, and if you commit to the journey and you take every day to work towards that 1, 3, 5, 10 year goal, it'll make it much easier. I would also say write down your goals. My
Absolutely.
goals, you can't see it behind me, but like up here I have a giant whiteboard with all of my goals.
Hmm.
I'm crazier than most people, so like don't be like me, but definitely write down
No,
your.
it's fine. I use a dry erase marker on my bathroom mirror. Works
There you go.
perfect.
There you go. So, write down your goals. I wake up every morning out of the bed right behind me. I look at my goals and say, okay, I can do this. And it makes you, remember why you're doing what you're doing. And that helped me to become debt free because I had for 3 straight years, I had on my whiteboard debt free 2020, debt free by 30 was another one. I was like, I'm going to turn 30 years old and I don't want to be in debt at all. So luckily I was able to make that happen.
Awesome. Well, guys, you heard it. Marc has told you, write those goals down. And if Tricia was here, she would probably roll her eyes, because we're talking about writing something down. But
Yeah.
write those goals down, get your mind wrapped around it, change your mindset, have that community, and budget.
Budget.
Um, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of the Money and Mindset podcast. Do be sure to check out Marc's Instagram at Better Wallet
Mm-hmm.
and check it out. I mean, he's got some good information, help you stay motivated and help you with your budgeting. If you have any questions or comments, do email us at moneyandmindsetpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you and take care.